So here at the Munich Security Conference, I'm so pleased to be joined by Rose Gottemoeller. She's the former Deputy Secretary General of NATO, also one of the negotiators of the New START Treaty, which has just expired. So we are going to be having a conversation about the future of nuclear deterrence. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Terry. It's great to be here.
So we have just seen the end of the New START Treaty, something you worked very hard to bring into existence. What are your thoughts right now on the dangers of nuclear proliferation, of Russia's plans, of China's plans? Where do we stand now in terms of nuclear danger, the clock, in a sense?
Very good. I am quite philosophical about the end of the New START Treaty because legally it was to go out of force anyway on February 5th of 2026. I was rather disappointed that President Trump did not accept President Putin's offer to extend the limits of the treaty by another year to give the United States more time to prepare to deal with China. And China is the big worry now. I think if there are any issues driving the proliferation problems, it has to do with China's buildup and worries really in the United States about having to face two nuclear peers in the future. And then that leads other countries to think, well, maybe we need nuclear weapons too. Also, the bigger geopolitical issues, obviously here in Europe and also in Asia, lead people to think, well, maybe the United States is going to be preoccupied with China, so we need to be thinking about our own nuclear weapons. So those are the forces driving proliferation nowadays.
And that's one of the things I want to focus on. Some of those people who might think they need nuclear weapons are Europeans. Let me go back to just one more question on China. Because we have not had China in a nuclear agreement, we don't really know what they have, do we? I mean, you would be one of the people who might have the best assessments.
Well, we do know, just from the unclassified assessments of groups like the Federation of American Scientists, that they've built up from approximately 300 warheads to 600 warheads in a few years. And that's still not many compared to the 4,000 total warheads that the United States has. But it's the pace of buildup that is worrying people. The Department of Defense, several years ago in the United States, estimated that by 2035, the Chinese would have 1,500 total warheads. Still not 4,000, but nevertheless a significant buildup.
And put that in the context of sort of what, quote, everybody else has, what we have, what the Russians have, what other nuclear powers have, and why that's worrying in the context of the balance globally.
The 5 nuclear weapons states under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, including the United States and Russia, China, UK, and France, the United States and Russia still have the vast majority of nuclear weapons. We deploy 1,550 weapons under the New START Treaty, and we each have a total of more than 4,000 weapons. So we are the big guys. Next comes China now, and the UK and France much below that, with numbers in the range of 150 to 250 weapons.
And what are the ambitions? I think that's what we're more worried about. You know what people have right now, but the ambitions of countries which may not be subscribed to the rules-based international order that just got basically denigrated by Secretary of State Marco Rubio.
Interestingly, all the nuclear weapon states under the Non-Proliferation Treaty embrace the notion of non-proliferation and preventing nuclear buildups all over the place. But we do have a Chinese buildup going on, which pushes the United States to think that it may need to increase deployed weapons too. So as a result of that, we have these pressures inside the P5 to build up nuclear weapons. And frankly, I don't know what the Russians are going to do. They have the ability to put more warheads on their missiles rather quickly if they want to. So we could see a Russian buildup as well.
And what do you make of the Trump administration's position right now? I mean, they didn't negotiate a New START treaty, perhaps not. You know, you can't blame any side fully for this, but what would you have liked to see versus what you're seeing right now?
It's very interesting because the president said right when the New START Treaty was going out of force, it was a bad treaty, badly negotiated. He wanted really to move on to a new treaty. But afterwards we hear that it was agreed apparently in Dubai with Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, as well as Steve Witkoff, his favorite negotiator, that we would sustain the status quo. That is the limits of the New START Treaty for the time being while negotiating with the Russians on a new treaty. And I actually think that's great. I think that's the right direction of travel. And this president, as well as his vice president, Mr. Vance, are very committed, it seems like, to nuclear nonproliferation.
But you know the Russians as well as anyone. What do you think they're going to do?
Well, it's interesting. Despite my concerns about a rapid Russian buildup of warheads, they have been quite circumspect in the past week, saying as long as the United States does not start building up, as long as they stay within these New START limits, Russia will not start building up. So that, too, is a good basis upon which to start negotiations.
Okay, so could be worse, I think I'm hearing you say, but let's now talk about the Europeans. So this has been a discussion before, decades past, years past, but never perhaps so pertinently as in weeks past or the most recent months, where the Europeans are saying, okay, we don't know what the United States is going to do. The U.S. wavers between wanting Europe to be fully independent and telling them that the nuclear umbrella of NATO is not in question. So having been a NATO insider, having been a nuclear proliferation insider, do you think the Europeans can trust the nuclear umbrella of the United States under this administration, which wavers on its support for Europe?
Understandably, there are lots of concerns all over the place, not only here in Europe, but also among U.S. Asian allies, about the reliability of the U.S. extended nuclear deterrent, because President Trump has raised all kinds of questions about his commitments to the allies. And so I think these are the right questions to ask, but I think more important than that is to remember that really extended nuclear deterrence is a mind game, and you want to raise doubts in the mind of your possible adversary about his taking risks. And the more you say, well, the president may decide this way or he may decide that way, the more the risks are evident to the adversary. And I think on top of that, the allies need to continue doing what they're doing to really train and exercise for the extended nuclear deterrent mission. They've been doing a great job in the last year. We had a big exercise in October in NATO, Steadfast Noon it's called. Very well done, very well advertised.
Invited journalists for the first time. I was there.
I know, that's fantastic. So advertising how strength in deterrence and cooperation are still much part of NATO. So I think that is a very good overall message to send to Moscow.
But that was in no way a European nuclear exercise. We were again practicing for if the U.S. were to pick up its weapons. I mean, admittedly European planes, but the U.S. nuclear weapons. So what we're really talking about is, do European allies need to develop their own nuclear deterrent that could exist, that could be credible, absent a U.S. nuclear umbrella? At the moment, of course, the infrastructure isn't there at all. The mindset isn't there, but the French are talking. What do you make of what the French are saying about possibly extending their deterrence? And what is the capacity? What is the technical capacity to do that?
There are two different questions here, Terry. The first is the other two nuclear weapon states under the Non-Proliferation Treaty, UK and France, who happen to also be leading members of NATO. And I applaud the fact that apparently Paris and London, we heard from President Macron last night at the Munich Security Conference, are thinking about what they can do to help to bolster the extended nuclear deterrent inside the context of a continuing U.S. commitment. And let's not forget that Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said a year ago when he came to Europe that the United States would continue to remain responsible for the extended nuclear deterrent. It's the conventional defense of Europe that the allies have to focus on. So those are welcome messages, and I think at the same time to have the UK and France stepping up more is a welcome step forward. And we'll see what happens, but for the European allies, and I was just part of a task force that the Nuclear Threat Initiative, Harvard University, and the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace co-chaired, and this was a bipartisan group of high-level former officials in the United States, resoundingly said we should not be encouraging friendly proliferation among our allies because it will be destabilizing. And there's another issue here for the Europeans, which is they are now responsible for a massive conventional buildup while they're trying to maintain their social welfare programs. Nuclear weapons programs are very expensive, not only building up, but also dealing with nuclear waste problems that come with a nuclear weapons development program. So I would not recommend in any way being tempted by nuclear weapons here in Europe.
So when you hear Macron say that they may extend their nuclear deterrent, you're saying, wait a minute, Manu, think again.
No, I'm saying that he is the commander already of a nuclear weapon state under the Non-Proliferation Treaty. And so if they decide in a declaratory way to extend more of a nuclear deterrent to the rest of Europe, that is France's decision. I'm saying states who are not now nuclear weapon states, like Germany, for example, suddenly deciding to build up.
But they're being pressed from inside. Sweden is in talks to do this as well. I mean, these are responsible governments.
That's why I'm advising, think carefully if you want to maintain your social welfare programs and you have this massive conventional buildup to take care of. Are you really ready to spend the huge budget that is required for a nuclear weapons program? And don't forget, you're not only building and acquiring the weapons, you are dealing with decades of nuclear waste afterwards.
And neither of those two nuclear weapons allies at the moment, the UK and France, have anywhere close to what it would take to even begin to extend a nuclear umbrella over the rest of their European allies, do they?
I would not say that at all. Again, nuclear deterrence and extended nuclear deterrence is a mind game. The UK and France for many years have really devoted their declaratory doctrine to the notion of assured retaliation, assured second strike, and they've successfully deterred the USSR and Russia now for 80 years. So I do not think it's an arithmetic game. They don't have to have equal numbers of nuclear weapons to deter Russia, but they do have to have resolve, and they do have to have the rest of the allies behind them.
So final question. The allies are nervous. Different things make them nervous every day, understandably so, about the U.S. commitment. But if you look at the two big players here, the U.S. and Russia, what are your expectations for the next months when it comes to nuclear threats? Putin has played this quite effectively, even though we haven't seen him change the posture, which is the key word. What are we going to see now in these sort of unpredictable days with no nuclear weapons treaty?
What I expect is what I've heard from the Vice President in recent days as he left Baku, and also from the team in Abu Dhabi, Kushner and Witkoff, that there are negotiations afoot with the Russians, and there will be some talks. We haven't seen a confirmation yet of those talks actually being underway, but I certainly hope that will be the case, and furthermore that they bring some real expertise to the table. We have some really good people who are weapon systems operators and former inspectors. They can definitely bring the expertise that's needed.
Well, it's good that you, one of our foremost experts in the United States, believe there's a generation who can take your place. Thank you so much. Former Deputy Secretary General.
It's my pleasure, Terry. It's great to see you.